All right, we've talked about the legislative branch, we've talked about the executive branch, we've talked about how those two branches work together to make laws. Today, I want to focus on what really happens in the judicial branch. We're not going to go through Article 3 because there's not a lot in Article 3. A lot of the stuff for our court system was defined in the Judiciary Act, and we've already talked about the different district court and the appeals court and Supreme Court a little bit, but it's not super important for us to dive into that. I want to focus mainly on how the judicial branch applies. Hopefully not to you. Some of this might apply to you. Unfortunately, some of you may have already been through this, but it's good to know how the judicial branch works, how the system works, and the basic terms that you will run into in the judicial branch. Start the timer. All right, timer's rolling. So let's go over our law visuals. First thing I want to say is criminal law. There are two types of law. The first type of law that we will talk about is criminal law. Criminal law and civil law. Criminal law and civil law. What do you think is the difference between criminal law and civil law? I'm just going to let this sit here for a second and take a drink of coffee because I'm sure that you're not even listening to me. You're so fascinated by the pictures on the screen. So let me just let this sit right here for a couple seconds and I'll take a drink of coffee and let you just enjoy the nonsense on the screen. Yeah. I'm assuming you focus mainly on the Grand Theft Auto. Possibly you looked at the drugs, or you looked at the dude with the shotgun pointed at the lady. Not cool. Criminal law has to do with crimes. When we talk about this type of law, or the judicial branch reviewing whether people have broken these laws, we are looking at the judicial branch, and juries and attorneys are then going to decide whether someone has or has not broken a law. They will gather evidence and they'll decide whether that person should be guilty or set free and how that should play out. And we'll go through the system later in the video and explain how it works. But the first thing you need to know is when we talk about criminal law, we're talking about the type of law that focuses on people who have broken laws. Civil law does not have anything to do with breaking a law. This is the other type of law that is studied and goes through the court system. There are judges, there's jury, there's evidence, there are witnesses, but this is not revolving around a crime. No crime has happened. What civil law is, it's a disagreement between two parties. There are two people, they cannot come to terms. They're in an argument. They're having a fight over some issue. And they cannot resolve it. They cannot solve their issue. So they take it to a court and they ask a judge or they ask a jury to decide who's right. This is Judge Judy. This is all the TV shows you see on TV in the afternoon. There isn't a crime. They're arguing over who owns the car. They're arguing over he owes me money because he didn't pay rent. We're arguing over the student said he was going to mow my yard. I gave him $20. He never showed up. I want my $20 back. The student says that never happened. We go to Judge Judy. We provide the evidence. We maybe call in some witnesses. And then Judge Judy talks to everyone, studies the information, and she makes a decision, and we have to live with the decision that she makes. If she says I'm right, then you got to pay me. Civil cases are disagreements between two parties where our government agrees to work with us to figure out possible solutions. Felony. Right now, so we've got criminal law and we've got civil law. Let's put civil law to the side and let's go back to criminal law. And under criminal law, we have two categories that we mainly focus on. We focus on felonies and we focus on misdemeanors. So again, criminal law, civil law, we're going to toss out criminal law. Now in criminal law, we have two categories. We have felonies and we have misdemeanors. First, let's talk about felonies. Felonies are big crimes. It's the easiest way to remember. A felony is a big bad crime. Drug abuse violations, DUI, property crimes, which would burglary, larceny, theft, motor vehicle theft, arson, burning things down, larceny theft, that's stealing things that are very expensive, assault, disorderly conduct, breaking liquor laws, violent crime, aggravated assault, murder, manslaughter, rape, robbery, burglary, vandalism. Not all vandalism. We'll talk more about that. It typically happens. Is it a big vandalism? Did you vandalize something that's very, very expensive? Well, not even very expensive. Did you vandalize something that's sort of expensive? If you vandalize something that's not really worth much or really doesn't matter, then it's not going to be a felony. It's going to be a misdemeanor. Felonies are big crimes. Misdemeanors are small crimes. Felonies are big crimes. Misdemeanors are small crimes. And when you go to court, it's different. What's it different? Well, we punish people more for big crimes, and we often ignore small crimes. They may not even take you to court for a small crime. They may just throw it out. Or if they even find you guilty of your misdemeanor, you may get a very small sentence, maybe a couple hours of community service. But if you commit a big crime, they will probably throw you in jail and they will give you a heavy fine. Weapon violations. Some curfew and loiterings fall under the category of felony. These are very rare. Most of the time, loitering or curfew is going to be a misdemeanor, but it's not always the case. It depends on what else is going on. Offenses against family, stolen property, motor vehicle theft, forgery, and counterfeiting. What I really want to focus on right here, which I see students commit a lot, well, not a lot. This one, students sometimes get themselves in this situation. They think, I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't steal it. I'm not the thief. I did not commit larceny or theft. Okay, well, guess what? If you possess stolen property, that means you just simply have the possession of. It was Steve that stole it. I'm just holding it. I didn't steal it. That's a felony. If you buy stolen property from Steve, that's a felony. Well, I didn't steal it. I bought it from him, but it was stolen goods. You're not allowed to do that either. Receiving stolen goods. You're like, well, why did they do this? Because the government's not stupid. They realize the game that Steve's stealing stuff and selling it and giving it to you real quick so that, but I didn't steal it, so it's no big deal. And then you steal it, and then you give it to Steve. We know how the system works. So if you possess, buy, or receive stolen goods, you can be held accountable. Now, a lot of times, the government's not going to throw you in jail for possessing it. What they're going to do is they're going to say, all right, let us know where the stolen goods came from, or we will put you in jail. And you either can tell them, I got it from Steve, or they can throw you in jail because this is a felony. That's how it works. They don't want to throw people in jail for buying stolen goods. And you may say, I didn't know. Well, okay, well, we're sorry that you didn't know, but I didn't know is not a defense. I don't know all the laws that exist. There are thousands and thousands of laws. I don't know them all. But that isn't an excuse. If I break one of them, too bad. So you can say, I didn't even know it was stolen goods. Well, it's fine, but we're going to throw you in jail unless you tell us where you got the stolen goods. So at that point, you might want to tell them, I got it from Steve. Misdemeanors are small crimes when you vandalize something, aggravated harassment. Now, sometimes harassment can be a felony. Most of the times, harassing someone is going to be a misdemeanor. Some assaults are felonies. Some assaults, like maybe you spit on someone, probably going to be a misdemeanor. Maybe you slap someone and they're not really hurt that bad, probably going to be a misdemeanor. But if you slap someone and injure them, then it might be a felony. Criminal mischief, I'm not going to go into the details. You can see loitering, graffiti. Now, it depends. If you spray paint the wrong thing, that could be a felony. If you spray paint some random wall somewhere that's a wall that's falling down, it's probably going to be a misdemeanor. Again, criminal law, civil law. Civil law is basically just disagreements between two parties. Criminal law is where we look at actual crimes being broken. And under that, we have two categories, felony, misdemeanor. Felonies, big. Misdemeanors, small. Civil law procedure. So let's go back to civil law. This is a disagreement between two parties. Remember, civil law, no crime has been committed. This is just two parties or two individuals or two people or two groups that can't seem to come to some sort of compromise or resolution. Their problem is too big, and so they have asked the court to figure it out for them. You file a complaint with the court. There will be a trial, and in that trial, either a judge or in some cases a jury will review the evidence, listen to the witnesses, listen to the plaintiff, listen to the defendant. A decision will be made, and both of those parties must live with that decision. Hey, the plaintiff wins. You can watch tons of really interesting videos of Judge Judy, or you can watch it on TV this afternoon when you get a chance, and then study, put into practice what you have learned here. Let's go over the procedure. Now, the procedure that I go over with you in this, the criminal law procedure, or the step-by-step process of which a criminal offense is resolved in court and how they work everything out. In each state, this process is going to be different. This is a generalization. This is a little broad, and this is just to give you a basic idea. Don't go to court and expect that we're going to follow every single one of these steps. This is for the video. This is to give students a general idea of how the process works. Again, every state is completely different. They add and change processes, and sometimes they change things at a moment's notice. But the basic idea of how the procedure works is a criminal is arrested. The second step is they will put that criminal in jail and give them bail. Bail is where you can pay a certain money and then you can go out and be free until your court appearance. So you're arrested, then you go to jail. You're also given the opportunity to have bail so you can pay that money and be free before you have to come back to court. If you don't pay bail, you will sit in the jail cell until your court appearance. The court appearance is called your arraignment. You're arrested, you go to jail, then you have an arraignment. The arraignment, there are several things that happen during this arraignment in the courtroom. You'll be asked to enter a plea. Are you guilty? Are you not guilty? Do you plead no contest? You have to plead. Now, again, different states, they have different order of sequences. In some places, during your arraignment, you do not enter a plea. That's later on. So different states, different process. Let's just give you a general idea. Also, in the arraignment, probable cause is reviewed. The evidence is reviewed. The judge looks at the probable cause for arresting you and the probable cause for taking you to trial. They look at the evidence. If there is not enough evidence, the judge often will dismiss the case. If there isn't enough evidence, they might have to wait a little bit longer. They got to look at the evidence and decide, all right, are we going to proceed to a trial? Is there enough here? The judge might decide. The district attorney might decide. Different things will be presented, but obviously the evidence is going to be provided in the arraignment for all to see. Also during the arraignment, an attorney will be provided for you if you cannot afford one. That wasn't always the case. Now, that's always been in the Constitution, but not until the 1960s did this become a right that the government would protect, where everyone, even if you cannot afford one, will be provided an attorney. That did not used to be the interpretation of the Sixth Amendment of the Constitution. Today, it is because of, who is the guy in Florida that broke into the store? I'm blanking on the name. It'll come back to me later. But anyway, you have the right to attorney for it. Also, during the arraignment, during this court appearance, after you've been arrested and after you spent some time in jail, they will set a date for your trial. You'll have a trial eventually. During the trial, that goes, and at the end of the trial, there will be a verdict. Sometimes it's the judge that will decide. Sometimes it will be a jury of your peers. They will decide if you're guilty or not guilty. If they decide that you are guilty, the next step is sentencing, and that is when the judge decides what your punishment will be, and then he says 200 hours of community service. So those are the steps. Arrest, jail, your arraignment, where you plead, the evidence is analyzed. Attorney, if you need one, trial date set. We have a trial. Verdict at the end of the trial, guilty or not guilty. If not guilty, we're done. No last step. If you are guilty, then we have to go to the sentencing step where they decide what your punishment shall be for committing that crime. Juvenile court procedure is a lot different. There aren't a bunch of steps. It's much more lenient. There is much more of a cooperation between the judge, between the defendant, between the defendant's lawyer, between the state's lawyer. Everyone works together to find the best possible solution. It's much more laid back. It's much more lenient. There isn't a jury. There isn't a bunch of hoopla. They all try to work together, and they try to be as compassionate as possible to find the solution. Again, juvenile court is not really, it's much more smashed all in together. It's more of a group of people trying to figure out what the problem is. Now, usually this only exists when it's not a big crime. If it's a major crime, a major felony, typically that juvenile will find himself in big boy court and will go through the regular criminal procedure. But if we're talking about a juvenile delinquent, someone who is either causing problems in their neighborhood, maybe stole something, maybe has made some threats, not getting along with people, loitering, graffiti, vandalism, it's not a big crime. In that case, all the attorneys and the judge, the family, and the defendant, which is the juvenile who's been accused of the crime, will work together to try to find a solution, and they will try to resolve things pretty quickly, and they will come back often to check in on that student. It's not like a trial where we found the guilty or not guilty, we're moving on. A lot of times in juvenile court, you'll come back until everything looks like it's good and you're good to go on about your day. There's basically your understanding of, remember, criminal law, civil law. Criminal law, crimes. Civil law, disagreement between two parties. Throw away civil law for a second. Criminal law, two types. Felonies, misdemeanors. Felonies are big crimes. Misdemeanors are small crimes. We went over the procedure. Should be good. Hopefully you never have to know any of these things. Hopefully you never end up or anyone you know is involved in a criminal case, and hopefully you or no one is involved in a civil case. Hopefully you can reach agreements and work out your issues together with another party.